all started 11 years ago. A young Kenyan professional girl, having worked tirelessly, woke up, picked her bag, and walked to the door. And as she got to the door, her boss asked her, "Where are you going?" At half day. It was 8 p.m. And she said, "I have been working for 13 hours straight. It can't possibly be half day." And then she added, "You gentlemen all have wives. I am the wife. So at 8 p.m., it's time for me to get home and start the night shift." And her boss looked at her, and she thought nothing more needed to be said. And this young Kenyan girl, as she left the office, she kept asking herself, when will this change? When will I find more meaning within my life? I want to invite you to go on a journey with me. This journey is going to take 4 key steps. And to take these 4 key steps, I want to encourage you to wear 4 sets of lenses, 4D lenses, if you may. And to do that, there's a roadmap. There's a formula that I've developed called G is equals to RH4. What does G stand for? Growth, integrated growth, the circle of life. That growth comes in a holistic fashion. R stands for the ability to raise up, to elevate, to strengthen. And what are the 4 H's? The first H, to raise your heart. The second H, to raise your head. The third H, to raise your hand. And the 4th H, to raise your entire self for a higher purpose. So are you ready for the journey? Wear your first lens. G is equals to RH4. Raise your heart. I'm reminded of a young girl who was an intern at the ripe young age of 26. And when she walked into this organization, a top multinational, she realized that the CEO there had this uncanny habit of talking down on people and shouting at them. And she was a HR intern. So she knew that this had an adverse impact on the culture in that organization. But she was just an intern right out of campus. But she knew deep down she must do something about this. And so what did she do? She gathered up all the courage she could, and one day she walked to her boss's office and did what we could call career limiting. And she told her boss, "I'm not sure whether you're aware," and she started walking backwards, "that when you shout down at us, it's not quite giving us the kind of impetus that you want it to have." And he says, "What?" And she says, "Yes, respectfully, sir, I just wanted to tell you that you want us to work better, but your shouting is doing the opposite. We are paralyzed. We are unable to work as well as you'd like to. Respectfully and humbly, I just thought it's important you know." And she ran to the hills. 2 days later, Mr. CEO walks in and says, "You, I want to tell you something." And she's like, "Oh my goodness, I should have my resignation letter ready." And he says, "I want to tell you thank you, because you are the one person in my 20 years of leadership who has had the courage to tell me what I'm doing wrong. And for that, you will go far, and you have your job." And she said, "But that's raising your heart, the ability to face fear and look at it eyeball to eyeball, and to say, I know I should do something better. I know I should do something good. I know I should feel the fear, but overcome it and do it anyway." Raise your heart to actually be courageous and to speak up, because when we raise our hearts, we actually raise our words. G is equals to RH4. Are you ready for the next lens? Another step. Wear your second lens. And this second lens is raising your head. And I don't mean standing up straight or raising it in terms of posture, but in fact, something deeper than that. That's raising your head. The ability to not only look at education as formal education, but the ability to learn from others, even people you don't expect to learn from. I remember our daughter, she was 2 years old, 2 years ago. And we went to visit my mom, her granny. And I was surprised to see this toddler trying to swipe the TV. Swipe the TV. Swipe the TV? How could she swipe the TV? And as she tried to swipe the TV, we were all laughing, wondering, what are you thinking? And she wasn't thinking. Her worldview is digital. She's a digital native. And so what was very interesting is that that's what she knows. How many of us are looking at the Generation Z? And this generation, we're trying to make them become like us. How many of us can consider having these younger people than us to be reverse mentors? That is raising your head. Did you know that there was a study that says that 45% of the jobs we have now, in 10 years' time, will be what? Extinct. Not obsolete, extinct. What are we doing now to future-proof the work that we are doing, to get us ready for the future of work? I urge you, raise your head. Now it's time to wear a third lens. To wear a third lens. And that third lens, I would say, requires some effort. And that effort is raising your hand. And to raise your hand, it means that you get uncomfortable. And so, I want to tell you a secret. You know, the Kenyan marathoners who seem to have a magnet for gold medals? I'm proud of them. It shows, doesn't it? There's a secret that they have. The secret is that they practice as if it's a way of life. And as they practice, there's something that they do that ties up to an African proverb. You will never see them practice alone. The marathoners practice as a team. And as they practice as a team, what then happens is that they leverage on raising the hand, meaning competing, and at the same time, lifting the others. And you know, there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go farther, go with others. So raising your hand means ask the question, challenge the status quo, volunteer, raise your hand to apply for that job. And this I speak specifically to women and millennials who may feel misunderstood. Because sometimes you have 8 out of 10 of the attributes needed. But you say, because I don't have 2, I won't apply. That's self-sabotaging. Raise your hand to block those self-sabotaging behaviors. So as we start the 4th quantum step we're about to take, to unlock that potential that is in all of you without a doubt, this one is the one that you raise yourself for a higher purpose. And just 6 months ago, I was seated there trying to write chapter 3 of my very long thesis. And you know, when they say writer's block is real, it is real. And my daughter, the elder one, walks in and she says, Mom, what's going on? You look so dejected. And I was like this. And then she says, what's going on? And I say, I'm stuck on this chapter. And as I'm stuck on this chapter, I don't know how to move on. And then she says, you know, you always tell us what you profess, you will possess. And I think this is not the time to hear my advice. But I graciously listened. And she says, so I'm just telling you. And she walks out. And she comes back. And as she comes back, she brings me a badge. And I was really frustrated. So when I look at the badge, I start to cry. And I start to cry because of what's written on the badge. And what's written on this badge is Dr. Patricia Murugami, 6 months before I finished my thesis. Remember that young girl 11 years ago? This is she. And she tells me, wear the badge, Mom, because maybe when you wear it, you will feel like you're a doctor. Maybe when you wear it, you will believe what you've been telling us, that this doctorate is not for you alone, but for all those people who are trying to become who they were created to be. For all those people who've been struggling to be that person. For all those people who are held back by whatever barriers within and without. Wear it, Mom. And I wore it, wiping my tears, and it was incredible. There's something about unlocking your potential for a higher purpose. And she did that for me. And needless to say, I finished the thesis. Maybe the question is, how do you truly find your purpose, that higher purpose? I want to encourage you to sit back comfortably in your seats, wherever you are. And I want you to stop and ask yourself, when is the time that you have felt the most pain in a project you've been doing, in something that you've been trying to achieve, and it just doesn't seem to be moving forward? Can you think about that time? I also want you to then think about the time when you have felt most passionate about something you're doing for others, particularly doing it for others. Something that you enjoy, that comes flowing effortlessly. Can you see those moments? Now, I want to encourage you to consider that where pain intersects with passion, that's where your purpose is found. When I think about G is equals to RH4, raising yourself for a higher purpose means listening to that inner voice, your conscience, asking yourself in this ethical space, what should I do? This or that? Do the good, even if it's costly, and do it for others. And so, as I finish off, I am reminded of our national anthem in Kenya. And allow me to sing 2 lines. Let one with all arise, with hearts both strong and true. I think those 2 lines really encapsulate your ability to unlock your potential by taking these 4 steps of G is equals to RH4, that you may have the courage to raise your heart, the ability to educate yourself in different ways and raise your head, the strength to raise your hand as you lift many others behind you, and really the inner serenity to raise your entire self for a higher purpose. I hope that you can start this journey of unlocking your potential, 1 person at a time, then 1 family at a time, 1 team at a time, 1 organization at a time, 1 country at a time, and maybe one day, 1 continent at a time, because of 1 idea. Weaving the path of life requires us to be courageous, just like weaving a Maasai blanket. Because at the end of the day, you will see life with hindsight and foresight. May you have the courage to raise your heart, your head, your hand for a higher purpose. Asanteni.